In today's news, BVI Fast-Pitch Softball League commencement date announced, and Premier 4 reminds UK of the BVI's commitment to exchange beneficial ownership information.
And US executes a second man in a week. All this and more when 284 News returns.
There's a reason you get up on a morning. A reason you pick yourself up, start the day. Maybe it's sheer grit. Maybe it's your ethics. Maybe it's because you know people like you are waiting for people just like you. We all have our reasons, and for Republic Bank, that reason is you. Every little thing, every big thing. It's all about making a difference in your life. Because after 182 years, if it's one thing we're sure about, is that the difference is you. We're here to help.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Welcome everybody. It's Thursday, July 16th, 2020. Another terrific day in Nature's Little Secrets. I'm Ron Grant.
And I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
We have lots in store for you, so let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it, Ron. Now, approximately 3 years since the 2017 hurricane season, the BVI Softball Association gears up to open the 2020 Women's and Men's Fast Pitch Softball season. Now, the league was first scheduled to commence on March 21st, 2020, but the league was postponed due to COVID-19. The BVI Softball Association have announced an official commencement date for the league's preseason and full season. The league's preseason and full season will commence on August 1st, 2020 and September 5th, 2020, respectively. Preseason games will be held in the form of 5-inning games. Now, we caught up with the General Secretary of the BVI Softball Association, Miss Bria Smith, and she explained that the BVI Softball Association had a meeting just last night where they discussed many things. So let's go straight to a voice clip with Miss Bria Smith.
I just want to say we had a really good meeting. We went straight to the point and got things out of the way. The first thing we spoke about was when we would be hosting the official Women's and Men's Fast Pitch League. And we decided on September 5th to be able to get all the players, the teams that were already registered, give them enough time to get their uniforms and everything together, and still give us time to complete the different works that we have on the field. Because if you went on the field, you'll see that out in the outfield on a whole, there's still some piles of dirt that's there because we need to fill in the spaces that were created based on when we knocked down the wall. So those are some of the things we still have to complete in preparation for the start of the league. Until then, we decided to actually host an official preseason tournament with an official schedule. And during that time is when we'll have teams come out and play. There will only be 5-inning games, and teams will have to wear the same colors. It's not in the sense of how we have the games playing right now. Those are purely fun games, but we're going to actually have an official preseason game and actually have it more official than what we're having now.
There was Miss Bria Smith basically speaking to the preparation of this upcoming season. But Ron, since June, teams have been giving fans just a little bit, just a taste of what to expect in this upcoming season. Teams took the field for some friendly, fun competition. Now, the Just for Fun games will end this weekend, just in time for the preseason tournament. This year, the league has 4 women teams, which are Synergy, That's Your Problem, Lady Hawks, and Warriors. The league also consists of 5 men teams, which are the Pirates, Storms, Power Outage, Los Marcielos, and hot shots. The BVI Softball Association is also looking for persons who are interested in being trained to become an umpire. Persons must have some level of understanding of the rules and regulations of fast-pitch softball. If interested, persons can contact the association via email at visbinfo@gmail.com. That is visba info@gmail.com, or their Facebook page at Virgin Islands Softball Association, or their head umpire and first vice president, Chappie Maduro. Now, Ron, as many of us know, softball, fast pitch softball, that is our official national sport here in the BVI. And I'm definitely glad to see that we're getting back out there in full numbers to kind of keep this tradition alive.
Absolutely right. Tradition it is. It's a local tradition here in the British Virgin Islands. We can see where the Honorable Neville Smith, Territorial at-Large Representative, who today actually happens to be his birthday. So
Yes.
happy birthday to you, sir. We hope you're having a wonderful day. Persons just enjoy. And I know you're a fan as well. You go to the games.
I go
it's
to the
pretty
games.
exciting.
Yes, even the just for fun games that are going on now. Previously, persons are coming out in
Lovely.
numbers. Also, yes, we see Honorable Sheep there on the mound, but also Honorable Reimer, Kai Reimer.
Awesome.
He also plays. So if you know anything about softball, or if you know nothing about softball, you can still come out to just have a fun time.
Amazing stuff. Continuing on the local scene, the National Parks Trust of the British Virgin Islands has closed the Gorda Peak National Park until further notice due to illegal farming, land clearance, and construction within the national park boundaries. Now, the trust said these activities are illegal under sections 49 F, G, H, I, and N of the National Parks Act 2006. Section 49(1) states that a person shall not, within a park or the other protected areas established under Part 3 of this Act, F, carry out any development activity, whether terrestrial or otherwise, which may or likely to adversely impact a park or protected areas. Now, place, erect, move, destroy, deface, or interface with any fence, gate, boundary marker, or other marker placed or authorized by the trust. Now, light any fire. You must not do that except within an approved area. Clear, burn, or otherwise damage any tree, bush, plant, or other vegetation. Reside on, occupy, or cultivate any land or plant, or otherwise grow or harvest any crop, whether on land, coast, or in the sea. Now, the penalty is as follows. Section 49, 2. A person who contravenes this section commits an offense and is liable on summary convictions or a fine not exceeding $10,000 or to imprisonment for the term not exceeding 1 year, or perhaps both conviction or indictment, to a fine not exceeding $50,000 or imprisonment of a term not exceeding 2 years, or both. Now, the public of the British Virgin Islands is hereby notified that under Section 15 of the National Parks Regulatory 2000 Act, any person who has abandoned any equipment within the Gorda Peak National Park has 60 days in which to have it removed, or it will be impounded and become the property of the National Parks Trust of the Virgin Islands. Now, Section 15(1), subject to subrogation, also states that no person shall deposit, leave, or abandon any vehicle or any other property in any park for more than 24 hours, except in locations where longer time periods have been designated or in accordance with conditions established by the director under Regulation 3. Now, the director may also cause any vehicle or other property which has been left or abandoned within a park for more than 24 hours to be impounded for 60 days until it is claimed by its owner, whichever is sooner. For additional information, please contact the director by telephone at 284, that's at 345 3650. Now, Kyla, our national parks are prized commodity to us
Very
here in the Virgin
important.
Islands, and we pride ourselves in having a number of national parks that speak of our history and heritage and culture, and also provide a really safe and clean environment for persons to engage in recreation, have gatherings. So we want to employ the general public to please adhere to these guidelines and help us to protect our national parks. They are very important to us.
I couldn't agree more, Ron.
Now, still ahead, USVI Youth Rehabilitation Center is exposed to coronavirus. This and so much more after a word from our sponsors. You're watching 284 News.
In the final analysis, we have two options: stay inside and create memories that will last forever, or go outside and say goodbye to those memories. We're not stuck inside, we're safer inside. The time is now to unite, embrace, and love each other from a distance. Show the world and the people in it just how much they mean to you by keeping your distance. It may be difficult, but necessary. Let's reintroduce humanity and heart to all homes. While we can't enjoy the sun, sand, and sea, let's take this time to remember why we are nature's little secrets. Stay inside, and when it's over, we would all be better, stronger, and we would all still be together. With self-discipline and patience, we can overcome. We are, have been, and will always be BVI Strong. A message from your team at 284 Media.
Viewers, welcome back. You're watching 284 News. Now, we're following a story out of the U.S. Virgin Islands. The VI Consortium has reported that the Youth Rehabilitation Center located in Estate Anna Hope on St. Croix, that's Anna's Hope on St. Croix, was exposed to the coronavirus after an employee tested positive for the disease. Now, this employee had come in contact with other employees of the facility nearly 2 weeks ago after returning to work following a trip outside of the USVI territory. Now, this employee came in contact with the delinquent youth who reside at YRC, but according to officials, continued working at the facility. Now, according to persons familiar with the situation who requested secrecy to speak freely, this employee was only tested last weekend and did not quarantine after returning from the trip. Now, the consortium reported and it said that it received a number of calls from individuals, two of whom said employees were concerned for their well-being and had planned on staging a sick-out in protest for their safety because the Department of Human Services, which governs the YRC, had failed to take swift action. Now, the Department of Health last week issued a release on the exposure and said all employees would be tested. Ms. Kimberly Cossie Gomez, DH, the Director of Health Commissioner, told the consortium yesterday afternoon that the Department of Health had performed tests on all residents and all but 2 and 3 employees of the YRC on Tuesday, but the exposure happened roughly about 2 weeks ago, Kyla, and now the test have taken place on Tuesday. Now, additionally, of concern to many employees is the status of the 6 residents of the YRC who, as of today, were being held at the facility even after the exposure. Other government arms, including the Department of Health over in the USVI, shut down after an employee in the St. Croix office tested positive for the virus. Now, Ms. Casey Gomez said DH was awaiting the results of the test, during which time employees are to report to work. She said, and I quote, "I can't commit because I don't know what the results will be." Now, on the U.S. mainland, hundreds of thousands of prisoners were released because of COVID-19 within correctional facilities, fearing an outbreak as the cases continue to rise. Now, asked by the consortium whether DHS has considered sending home the YRC residents for at least 2 weeks, juvenile delinquent youths who have committed crimes but are below the age of ordinary prosecution, Ms. Gomez said it was out of her jurisdiction to make that decision. She said, and I quote, "That's a court order for them to be remanded to YRC, so Human Services does not have control and custody like that. So it's a court-mandated remand to the Youth Rehabilitation Center," she said. Now, asked whether the Department of Health couldn't reach out to the court and request that residents be sent home temporarily because of the exposure, Ms. Gomez said, and I quote, "In the event that any of the residents are positive, then they will also expose their family members if they were sent home. Now, when pressed on whether the Department of Health would do with what they would do with residents who test positive, the commissioner said, it depends. Right now, there are a couple of different scenarios because some are scheduled to be released in the next week. So I would prefer to wait until I know the results are before I make a decision, and that's what I'm doing right now, she commented. Now, the commissioner said the residents reside in individual rooms. She added that she was in communication with all but one of the residents' family members. Now, on Wednesday night, 5,453 COVID-19 tests were performed in the U.S. Virgin Islands, with some 5,036 returning negative, 249 positive, 120 recoveries, and 129 active cases. According to the Department of Health, 6 individuals unfortunately have passed away in the U.S. Virgin Islands from the virus. That's 2 on St. Thomas and 4 on St. Croix. Kyla, a very troubling issue, but I can understand how residents over in St. Croix would be concerned about this. This facility, which I actually had the honor of visiting a few years ago, is an institution where delinquent youths who have been faced with challenges and have problems with the law, they are housed there. It's quite a safe and protected environment, so we see where their exposure could raise concern, particularly because the cases over in the U.S. Virgin Islands continue to soar every day. So we will be following this story, and we will be presenting an update once those test results come back, and we wish that all positive results for the safety of the youth there, and of course all their workers and family as well.
We definitely hope for the best. As you said, this is definitely a troubling story, but it kind of shows where persons have to be so careful.
Absolutely.
And not be selfish when returning home. Of course, you do feel when you're returning home that you feel okay. Things are all right. I need to return to work as soon as possible so I can continue to make money. Yes, that is understandable. But now so many persons' faith are now in one person's hands. And I think that is just an example for all persons in general.
I could not agree with you more.
Most definitely. Now, as we move on, now in updating the territory on the financial services industry on July 4th, now Premier and the Minister of Finance, Honorable Andrew A. Fahie, said that utilizing the BOSS system platform has enabled the Virgin Islands to also rise to meet European Union standards on data collection with an efficiency and effectiveness that some of our competitors may just envy. The BVI's Beneficial Ownership Secure Search System, better known as BOSS, for persons who don't know, it is a cutting-edge electronic search engine that enables the relevant BVI authorities to have a searchable database with information on BVI companies and their beneficial owners. This system was pioneered in the Virgin Islands to facilitate the sharing and searching of BVI beneficial ownership information. The BOSS system platform was introduced in 2017 following the Beneficial Ownership Secure System Act. Since then, the BVI's Financial Investigation Agency, which we know as FIA, which is the entity responsible for receiving requests for BOSS, has responded to hundreds of requests for beneficial ownership information from UK law enforcement authorities. The system helps to enhance intelligence and investigate illicit financing, just to name a few of its functions. This portal can be accessed by competent authorities here in the BVI as well as in the UK. The system is built to ensure that the territory can efficiently exchange that information in relations to exchange of notes. Now, back in April in 2016, the government of the Virgin Islands signed an exchange of notes agreement with the United Kingdom government. Premier Fahie expressed that the government of the Virgin Islands wrote to the United Kingdom government just last week to once again reiterate the BVI's stance and to reiterate the BVI's continued commitment to exchange beneficial ownership information with the UK under the same law of the exchange of notes on beneficial ownership. He stated, and I quote, "Beneficial ownership information in the system will also be available to other authorities in the Virgin Islands to ensure that they are able to meet their international obligations. Importantly, the system will not be accessible by the public." He explained that his government took the opportunity in the letter which was sent to the United Kingdom government just last week to highlight that the BVI continues to meet and adhere to the highest international standards as a responsible, cooperative, and quality financial center. The government of the Virgin Islands recognized that the continued success of our financial services industry requires that we continue to align ourselves with those and other standards as they emerge. Now, Ron, here in the BVI, we continue to say it and we continue to demonstrate it.
Yes.
We are a responsible and cooperative financial services center. We try our best to adhere to all standards, to meet
Yes, we
all
do.
international standards. And I think the BOSS system is definitely one of our most innovative ways of doing that.
And that's exactly what we have to continue to do, be innovative and creative, especially in protecting this very vital industry that is our bread and butter. So we have to protect it at all costs, and I'm happy to see BOSS come into fruition.
Most definitely. Now, viewers, still ahead, countries worldwide offers attractive packages to tourists just to visit. Viewers, and also, U.S. executes the second man in just a week. All this and so much more when 284 News returns.
I love you, Penny. Run, Forrest, run! Move it. Man, I'm sick of being in this house. I just want to go to the beach, go out, go just one day, and gather, just gather. I'm sick of being in this house.
Having withdrawals from being stuck in the house for so long? Are you tired of looking at your old photos and daydreaming about your next vacation? Well, BVI Staycation is back, and there's so much to choose from. For more information on upcoming deals, follow us on Facebook at BVI Staycation. Get ready, BVI, for an adventure in paradise. It's time to vacation where we live.
Viewers, welcome back. You're watching 284 News. Now, following an international story out of the USA, Terry Hugh Hunt out of Indiana, the Associated Press has reported that the United States on Thursday carried out its second federal execution this week, killing by lethal injection at a Kansas City man whose lawyers contended he had dementia and was unfit to be executed. Wesley Ira Perkey was put to death at the Federal Correctional Complex in Terre Haute, Indiana. Perkey was convicted of kidnapping and killing a 16-year-old girl before dismembering, burning, and dumping her body in a septic pond. He was also convicted in a state court in Kansas City after using a claw hammer to kill an 80-year-old woman who had polio. Now, Perkey expressed remorse before he was executed, stating, and I quote, "I deeply regret the pain and suffering I caused to Jennifer's family. I am deeply sorry. I deeply regret the pain I caused to my daughter, who I love so very much. Now, this sanitized murder," he said, "really does not serve no purpose whatsoever." Now, his time of death was 8:19 a.m., that's EDT, and the Supreme Court cleared the way for the execution to take place just hours before, ruling in a 5-4 decision. The 4 liberal justices dissented like they did for the first case earlier this week. Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote that proceeding with Perkey's execution now, despite the grave questions of factual findings regarding his mental competency, casts a shroud of constitutional doubt over the most irreversible of injuries. This was the federal government's second execution after a 17 years hiatus. Another man, Dennis Lewis Lee, was put to death Tuesday after his 11th hour lethal bids fail. Both executions were delayed into the day after they were scheduled as legal wranglings continued late into the night and into the next morning. The Justice Department has been questioned for holding the executions in the middle of a worsening corona pandemic, prompting lawsuits over fears those who would travel to the prison could become infected. Now, the decision to resume executions after nearly 2 decades was criticized as a dangerously political move in an election year, forcing an issue that is not high on the list of American priorities, considering the 11% unemployment rate and, of course, the continuing and worsening pandemic that is COVID-19. Perkley's lawyers had argued his condition had deteriorated so severely that he didn't understand why he was being executed. They said he was repeatedly sexually assaulted as a child and had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and other mental health conditions. The issue of Perkey's mental health arose in the run-up to his 2003 trial, and when, after the verdict, jurors had to decide whether he should be put to death in the killing of 16-year-old Jennifer Long in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, prosecutors said he raped and stabbed her, dismembered with a chainsaw, burned her, and dumped her ashes 200 miles away in a septic pond in Kansas City. Perkey was separately convicted and sentenced to life in the beating death of 80-year-old Mary Ruth Bales of Kansas City. The Supreme Court also lifted a hold placed on other executions set for Friday and next month. Dustin Hawkin, a drug kingpin from Iowa, convicted of killing 5 people in a scheme to silence former dealers, was scheduled for execution on Friday. Kyla, a major story coming out of the United States as we see after a 17-year hiatus, they are now proceeding with the execution of persons. And of course, the conversation of whether or not that should be done is a major concern. Now we see where the fact that it is taking place amidst COVID-19 pandemic, in addition to an election year, when there are so many other issues, persons are kind of up in arms as to whether or not this is appropriate. But to be honest with you, I think the matters of the law must prevail, and this is what we see here taking place. So whether you're for or against, the United States has proceeded, and they're continuing with it with many more executions scheduled.
I think what I would say, the crimes that have been committed by these persons are simply disgusting, and you cannot speak to that.
Very heinous crimes.
But at the end of the day, I think the questions are begged to be asked. After 17 years, why now? And as the story says, so many other priorities with an 11% unemployment rate and with the pandemic going on, it really just begs the question, why now? And Nellie wonders, what are the powers behind closed doors? Does this have to do with election? Does this have to do with just playing chess? What is it? I think that's what the questions really are. But as you said, when justice is to be served, it simply has to be served.
And one of the things that I think persons need to understand about matters of such is that we really and truly need to put ourselves in both positions. One, the position of the victims and their families who are seeking justice continuously, and that also of the families of the persons who are being executed. I think on both ends, it is a daunting position to be in, and I think if we were to look at it holistically and really just mentally try to put ourselves in that frame mind, and we know that many of us would want to see justice for our families. But as I mentioned in the story, we are 4 months away from the United States presidential election. So many persons are, pretty much wondering if this is a political gimmick, if is it a political move. But we're going to follow this story and continue to see what takes place in the United States.
Most definitely. But Ron, even as you said, just to add to that just a little bit more, even the persons who are on trial for execution, just knowing that it is coming but not knowing when.
Yes.
I think that is seriously just, I don't know. It's really
a tough place to
hard.
be in for, I think, both parties.
Most definitely. But Ron and viewers, we do have another story, but we are running out of time. So I think this is where we say bye-bye. Of course, viewers, you need to visit us at 284media.com for your daily news updates. You can follow us at Facebook at 284media, on Instagram as well as Twitter on 284BVI. Of course, I am Kyla Kenesha Forbes.
And I'm Ron Grant. It was our pleasure, as always, bringing your daily updates. We will see you tomorrow. Happy Thursday, everybody. Have a beautiful rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Father Jesus, that line here long like church service.
Alright, do enjoy the rest of the day. Next customer line, please. Wait, hold on a second.
Yes, Sonny Boy, come, yes, son.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sonny Boy. What on there? You must have cut fun topic.
It's okay, I'll take care of it.
What? No man,